Thank you, Matthew. Thanks, Majors and Quinn, for having me again. It feels like it's only been a year. We were here mid-June for the first book, so it's been just over a year.
You're lapping me.
Yeah,
You're gonna lap me soon.
And we were here for your third book in between then, which came out in
September. Last September, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm on number 2. You're on number 3. It's gonna be a race to see who gets their next book out first.
It's you. I don't know that that's a race.
But thanks for coming, everybody. It's amazing to see so many people here and so many people that I know. Thank you very much.
Do you want to explain why you have me, the family drama comedy writer, sitting next to you, the person who murders people for a living?
Yeah, it is funny how Gretchen, who writes beautiful books about nice people, is hooked up with a degenerate like me.
They're odd. They're not necessarily nice. They're fairly odd, but they don't murder each other. That's true.
So Gretchen and I met at the Loft. I think it was 2015 when we took that first class with Mary. And Gretchen, you should know this story, but Gretchen wrote a book, and then Mary said, "Put that book away and write something else." And then Gretchen wrote that book going nowhere, so we kind of both learned a good lesson in that class. But yeah, we met in that class, and we've been in kind of a writing group, a writing pairing ever since, and our books are nothing alike, but we make a fantastic team.
We do. Josh, when he wrote that book, that I wouldn't agree that it just hasn't gone anywhere yet. Didn't go nowhere. It just hasn't gone anywhere yet. But in it, I remember reading the first draft, and in it, he was writing about small town Minnesota, much like Sandy Lake, and he put a guy in there who had an addiction to pull tabs and meat raffles. And I looked at him and I said, "You had me at meat raffles." There's no one in this world that I would rather read than a Josh Moehling book, especially if there's a meat raffle in it. So
Very Minnesota.
yeah, so we're very different, but Josh has become indispensable to my writing. And if you want to stalk us, we meet almost every Saturday morning at Panera to write together and cry together and laugh together, and sometimes we drink in the morning. No, that's not true. But he's been, I know personally, become an indispensable part. So we're writing besties. Yeah, we're book buddies.
We each have a different strength. I think I'm like always like plot, 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 and you are very character and motivation. And I think we both round each other out in those areas, and it's really nice to have.
It is really nice to have. The first comment that Josh gave me on after I was told to put my book away in that writing class, and I started a new one. That book became my debut novel called Evergreen Tidings from the Baumgartners. And I remember Josh read very early drafts of it, and he said to me, there's a overbearing matriarch at the center of that book, and he said to me, "I love this woman. She's hysterically funny. She's just odd, but I love reading about her, but I have no idea why I'm reading about her." And that's the kind of insight that, that I rely on him for, is, put something in this story that drives it forward, that makes people turn the page. So it's obvious that you're pretty good at that, given how well And There He Kept Her did. People seem to love that book, Josh.
Yes.
Congratulations. Yeah.
You've gotten so modest.
It's insane what happened with that first book. I had very low expectations because this game it's a hard game to win, and a lot of it is out of your control, and I just didn't want to be disappointed, and so I kept my expectations very low. But luckily I had a publisher who believed in me and my book way more than I did, and just really went for it and did put a lot of work into making that book find its audience, and it's exceeded all my expectations by a mile. It's been crazy.
Yeah, yeah. It hasn't surprised me at all. You know, I'm a little bit over the top where I'm like, it's gonna do great, and it did, and I'm thrilled for you. So one of the things I want to ask you tonight is, let's start with the last book and transition into this book that all these lucky people have in their hands, burning a hole through their fingers. They're itching to read it. But let's go back to And There He Kept Her. You have heard from a lot of readers. That's one of the things I love in our Saturday morning conversations. Josh always has some interesting email that's been sent to him over the course of the week, and he tells me about it. What have people responded to in that book? Would you say the most?
I've gotten a lot of email. Well, people like Ben Packard. That I think he's the main attraction, and
What do they like about him?
I think he's a new take on a known entity. It's a police procedural. It's a cop in a small town, but it's a gay cop in a small town, and you just haven't seen a lot of that. And I wish I could say that I saw the whole of the market and I was like, I'm gonna write a book and fill out all and do amazing things. And I didn't think any of that. I just had this idea, and yeah, it's crazy how it's changed my life in the last couple of years.
How Packard has changed your life?
Yeah.
Okay,
I was
so
telling a story today.
I'm not letting that one go. Yeah.
Well, I was telling the story today. I had a virtual interview this afternoon, and she asked me where Ben Packard came from, and I said I wrote a book before this one, and it was set in Sandy Lake, and it had an author and a plane crash, and it wasn't a police procedural, but
And it had a meat raffle.
it had a meat raffle.
Yeah.
And there was a gay sheriff's deputy in that book, and he was on 2 pages. I don't even know if he had a name, and I don't know why he had to be gay in that book, because he didn't even do anything in that book, except that he was kind of the butt of a joke between the 2 main characters in that book. And I sent that book around to agents, and half a dozen of them read it, and they were like, it's good, but not great, and I'm gonna pass. And so I had to figure out what I was gonna write next. And I kept thinking, I really liked the small town that I created and some of these characters that I created. And I was just curious about this gay sheriff's deputy and what it would be like to be a gay man in a small town, a gay police officer in a small town. And just that decision to make that character who had absolutely no purpose in that book and pluck him out of that and give him his own book. And now I have contract for 4 books for this guy that I have to write. So that's how Ben Packard has changed my life.
Yeah, he was a seed. He was
He's
a seed.
and he's fruited.
I want to come back to that because I want to come back to that because I have a distinct memory of that character in that book, and it relates to some of the things I want to talk about tonight. But now I've completely lost my train of thought
Good
about
night,
that.
everybody.
Huh?
I said good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. We'll come. Where? Well, okay. Let me ask you this: where did he come? Oh, I know what I want to ask. My characters talk to me in my head. Is Packard? How does he live with you as a character? Does he talk to you in your head? Does he pop up at unexpected moments? Do you feel like he's maybe a fractured piece of you that you write about? Where do you think he dwells and or came from?
I think he talks to me when I sit down and write. I mean, it's not in my head all the time. I think, Packard's younger than me, taller than me, better looking than me, braver than me. But we have some personality traits in common, maybe kind of some of the same sense of humor, some of the same interests, some of the same likes and dislikes. So a little bit of me in Packard, but he's 95% his own guy.
Do you think he's sort of who you would idealize, the person that you would want to be? Are there parts of Packard that you wish you were?
I wish I was 6'4" and ripped and 10 years younger, absolutely.
Is there any part of you that just wants to go out and kick ass, like Packard does?
No. I'm too lazy to kick ass.
All right, well, that explains things. What I wanted to go back to about that early character, Packard, was you're absolutely right, that character did next to nothing in that book. It wasn't centered on him, the plot didn't revolve around anything he did, except when you came out and wrote the next book, and you said it was based on this character, I still remember your description of that character in that previous book because he stood out so distinctly to me. I remember he was standing, there's a plane crash into a lake, a frozen lake, and he's standing on the shore, and you describe him as wearing an oversized flannel jacket and something else. And for some reason he leapt off the page for me, and I thought, I hope there's more of this guy later in the book. And one of the things that I have discovered over the years that I truly love about your writing is not only do you pick up on tiny little details that you don't find in every book, a la the neat raffle, but your character descriptions, maybe, I may be more of the character writer, but your character descriptions always fascinate me. So I'm going to read a couple of my favorites. Josh actually gave me permission to do this. He didn't want to do a reading tonight, and I said, but you're such a good writer. People are going to want to hear a little bit. So I'm going to do it instead.
Is this the new novel?
This is the new novel. Yeah. Okay, so here we go. This is your description of Shepherd. Everybody will remember from the first book the deputy shepherd who's just kind of a buffoon and does everything wrong and drives Packard crazy. Here's your description of Shepherd in the second book. If being a good deputy required no more than smoking cigarettes and having an encyclopedic knowledge of town gossip, Shepherd would have been top ranked. He knew more about some folks than their internet search history did. I mean, that says everything. I don't need to know what Shepherd looks like. I don't need to be reminded of why he's a buffoon. That all comes out, but you have such skill at distilling people. Here is the widow of the victim in the book, the way you describe her. Her name is Carolyn. This is Packard's first description of her. Carolyn sat beside Packard in the sheriff's SUV. A change of clothes seemed to have temporarily refreshed her. She was wearing jeans and a pink blouse and a light jacket. She smelled like laundry detergent and hand lotion. I think you automatically know who that woman is. If she smells like laundry detergent and hand lotion, I can picture her. I don't need to know that she's wearing a pink blouse, but all of a sudden all those pieces together and I have a clear picture of her. It's just fantastic. Okay, we're keeping going, people. This is my Josh adoration hour, and my goal tonight is to make him blush. Okay.
It's working.
Oh, look. Aw, and against your graying hair, it stands out so beautifully. Your silver hair, I should say. Your stately silver hair. Okay. Listen to this description. Let's see if you can even name who this is. A stooped old man in a feed cap and a flannel jacket watched from the open end of the wide barn as Packard rolled up and stopped past the house. He started rocking toward Packard on hips that didn't flex and knees that didn't bend. Who describes a man as rocking? But it's brilliant. It's brilliant, right? You can immediately picture this guy. His hips don't bend or his knees don't flex. Yeah, do you know who that is? Do you remember who that is?
Yeah, that's the father of the dairy farmer.
Yeah.
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 I think one of the things I'm always thinking about as I'm writing and conscious of, especially in a thriller, is you've got to there's not a lot of time for a lot of description.
Yeah.
You've got to keep it moving.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever you can do to describe a person or make them stand out in as few words as possible works to your benefit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think readers respond to that in you too, because a lot of books fall prey to there's either nothing but plot or there's nothing but description. You get so weighed down and stuff, and but if there's nothing but plot, it's like it's a bit of a shallow.
Yeah.
Shell.
You have no connection to the people there.
Yeah, you have no connection to it. Okay, here's my favorite, last one, okay? The man who climbed out of a tractor was tall with a slab of fat that clung to the front of him like a child with its legs wrapped around his hips. And I'm really offended that you put me in your book. Do you know who that is?
That's the dairy farmer.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, it is. Ding, 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 ding. Josh, you haven't forgotten your book yet. Josh has been working fast and furiously on finishing his next book.
Yep.
And the draft is in, the edits are coming along. Do you have a pub date yet?
No, I don't.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to embarrass you just a little bit more because we're gonna get into talking about Sandy Lake now. And this is your description of Sandy Lake when the book opens. The day prior was the Sandy Lake Labor Day Festival. Packard had walked the length of Main Street through a crowd dressed in shorts and sunglasses, soaking up the sunshine on the last official weekend of summer. It felt nice not to be stuck at his desk or investigating anything for once. His only job was to say hi to people and make sure everyone was having a good time. Vendors under tailgating tents lined both sides of the street and fanned themselves behind tables set up with soaps and candles and local honey. There was Adirondack furniture for sale and wooden signs painted with rules for the cabin and every saying imaginable involving the words mama and wine. Gary Bushwright was there. I mean, can you just not see the Main Street at, in Grand Rapids or Park Rapids or insert Lake Town here? Okay. Gary Bushwright was there advertising his dog shelter. So Gary's back, folks. Gary is back. And Packard still has his three-legged dog and he's falling over in the first chapter. He's just so inconsolable. Okay. Gary Bushwright was there advertising his dog shelter and kenneling services. A black lab mix and a long-haired dachshund panted in the shade. Gary was dressed in cargo shorts and flip-flops. His enormous beard obscured most of the Gary's Kids logo on his t-shirt. He twiddled his fingers in Packard's direction and beckoned him under the tent as he talked to the mom of two blonde girls petting the dogs. Deputy Packard, this is a quote, Deputy Packard, that's really hard to say. I would appreciate it if you changed that. Got his dog from Gary's Kids, didn't you? Packard took off his sunglasses. He was tall in his early 40s with a swimmer's build that made even the department's bland uniform look good. He had neat trimmed beard and dark hair recently receded at the temples that he kept military short. Packard said, I got most of my dog from Gary. He only came with 3 legs though. One of the girls looked unconvinced. Dogs have 4 legs, she instructed. Packard took out his phone and pulled up a photo of Frank. See, only 3 feet. Gary gave me a discount, but he also said he'd order a new foot. I'm still waiting. Why didn't you get the foot? The younger girl asked Gary. Honey, he's teasing you. The deputy is very happy with his dog as is, and he's gonna pay extra the next time he wants that dog kenneled. I just love it. You just jump right in. So let's talk about Sandy Lake. I have decided to describe Sandy Lake as like the upside down Lake Wobegon. It's like, yeah, instead of everybody being happy and living their best lives and the women being strong, and people just walk out of their house and get abducted and murdered,
Dirtbags,
run over by tractors. And I still love that final scene. And no spoilers in case you haven't read his first book, but that final scene with the skid, the
Oh, the skid loader.
the skid loader and what it does to someone in that scene. I still love it. So how has Sandy Lake changed at all from book one to book two, or has it?
I don't know if it really has it. The first book took place early in the spring, and I think it was like May 1st when most of the action started, and it was the events in that book probably went over 4 or 5 days. And when this book starts, it's Labor Day, so it's only 4 or 5 months later.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who was in charge of the population numbers on the sign on the edge of town is said to scrape a few off, and like he's going to be really busy because a lot of people keep getting killed in this town. The numbers just keep going down and down and down. For the most part, it's still the same Sandy Lake.
Yeah. Okay, so in this book, actually I should show it. In this book, Packard runs for sheriff. In this, I got an early reader copy and it came with this inside it, if you can see it. It's a Ben Packard for sheriff.
Oh, cool.
Sandy Lake County Sheriff 2023, and it looks like a fundraising letter. It comes along with your book. It's really a fun read. So he runs for sheriff in this book, and as readers will soon see, it's a mixed decision for him. In your opinion, should he have run for sheriff?
So yeah, it's a big conundrum for him because it's not much of a spoiler to say the sheriff dies. He was sick in the first book. Packard's been working as acting sheriff, and very early in the second book, the sheriff dies, and the county board of commissioners. It's Labor Day, and the board of commissioners is like, we need a full-time sheriff. We want sheriff on the ballot in November in 2 months. And Packard's first inclination is absolutely not interested. Not interested in the job, not interested in the scrutiny of an election. He's a detective. That's what he enjoys doing, and a sheriff is a lot of administrative stuff and people management, and Packard has absolutely no interest in running. And then he gets kind of strong-armed into it when he sees who is running, and realizes that he needs to put the greater good before his own interests. And so I'm spoiling things a little bit, but
No, you're not. No.
it's no secret. He has to run in the election. He doesn't want to. It's the absolute last thing that he wants to do, but he does it. Should he have run?
Yeah, because I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes as authors, we do things to our characters that we don't necessarily want for them, but it's natural that it has to happen. And sometimes we want things to happen for them that just can't happen. So did you have any opinions? Do you think, did you want him to run?
I mean,
Was it a recipe for success or a recipe for disaster, in your opinion, for him to run?
sometimes I feel bad about what I put Ben Packard through, but it wouldn't be a very interesting book if I didn't torture him, right?
Well, clearly he lives in Sandy Lake, so, you know.
All he did was stay home and go to work and do whatever he wants every day, all the time. It wouldn't be a very interesting book. So it is fun to push him out of his comfort zone and see how he reacts, and how he reacts to what happens and what doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely, you get to know Packard a lot better in this book. You see an entirely different side of him. He comes out of his shell a little bit more, I would say, with every book. I've only read snippets of the third book. I haven't read the whole thing, so I don't know if that holds true for the third book. Would you say it does? Do we discover a whole is that your intention, to keep unfolding pieces of Packard as the series goes along?
I don't know if you necessarily need a new side of him. Yeah, I think maybe actually you do, but without talking too much about what happens.
Yeah.
His mom shows up in the third book, and she's a character all in her own right. So that could be interesting.
Okay, so last time we talked about Easter eggs that you put in the book. Are there any, it was one of the Easter eggs that you put in the first book was the name of a dog, right?
Yep.
You named the dog after one of the dogs you owned. Is that correct?
My friend Rhonda's dog.
Oh,
was
that's right.
Frank. Yeah.
Was Frank. Rhonda's dog
the
was Frank.
corgi, yeah.
Any Easter eggs in this one?
So, I'm gonna call out some people in the audience, cause they had a huge impact on my life, and they have a bit of a role in the book. The first person I'll talk about is Kelly, who's sitting over here in the yellow. And if you read the first book,
She just said oops.
yeah. If you read the first book, you'll remember Kelly is the administrator of the sheriff's department. She's like the boss. She gets shit done. And everybody, the sheriff even recognizes that Kelly is the boss. And Kelly and I work in Medtronic together. Before times, we were in the office 5 days a week, our cubes right across from each other, laughing and cutting up and doing everything. And at first I thought of Kelly, I know when I was creating that character, so that's why she has the name Kelly. And in this book, you find out that Kelly, the character in the book, is a huge Barry Manilow fan.
True.
And Kelly in the book is at a Barry Manilow concert during a key scene in this book. And Kelly has been to over 100 Barry Manilow concerts. She's like,
Oh, that number's double drop.
yeah, more than 200 Barry Manilow concerts.
Love
She
it.
got me to go to a Barry Manilow concert. And I had the best time. It was one of the best concerts I've ever been to. So, Kelly, you've been immortalized.
Deservedly so.
Yeah,
Yes,
in the book.
deservedly so.
And then there's 2 crime scene investigators in this book, and their names are Becky and Eric. Becky is right there in the black dress. And Eric likes to claim that he was the inspiration for Gary, who is the flamboyantly gay truck driver / dog rescuer / retired porn star
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
with an enormous penis. So Eric is like, it's me, it's me. I don't know. I refuse to confirm or deny that. But Becky and Eric have been immortalized in the new book.
That's fantastic. I love it. Oh, I love it. Those are pretty good Easter eggs. You know,
Yeah,
it's too bad this isn't. Well, we have witnesses, so you know when your books go for millions of dollars for first editions, they can say, I'm in the
Association copy. I was
Yes.
the inspiration.
Exactly. Okay, so final question before we play a game. Josh and I always play games at our events together. And, well, I play games at all my events, but Josh is usually the unwitting recipient of a new experiment that I've concocted. And tonight's no different.
I have no idea.
Okay, so it's gonna be fun. But, final question, this is a serious one. What are you hoping readers take from this second book in the series?
I hope you enjoy the mystery. The first book there was no mystery in the first book. From the very first page, you knew where the kids were, you knew who had them, you knew who the bad guy was, and it was more of an experiment of trying to maintain the tension in the story when there was no mystery. And this one is a whodunit, and based on what people are saying in the early feedback, you have no idea who did it. And I'm pretty proud of that, because I have no idea what I'm doing. So I hope you enjoy the mystery. I hope you, if you're a fan of Ben Packard, I hope you get to know him a little bit better. And I hope you enjoy the book.
They will. I've read it twice, maybe 3 times. Yeah. Okay, it's fantastic. Now, games. Okay, I'm gonna give you a choice on this one. If you wish to engage the audience in participating, you may. you can ask for people's help in this. But here's how we're gonna play. This game is called the game of Clueless. It is a rip on the game. It's a riff on the game of Clue. Except this one, instead of naming who done it, you know, Colonel Mustard in the library with a lead pipe, this game is all about who it been done to. Okay?
Okay.
So just like in Clue, where you have to name the person and where they were and what weapon they were holding, in this one, you are going to pull 3 cards, one from each character, or one from each category. So you're gonna pull a who card out of my pile, you're gonna pull a where did it happen card, and you're gonna pull a with what card. And then you're gonna create a scenario that explains
My worst nightmare.
that's why you love me, Josh. So much. That's why I'm offering you the
Right, there's
audience
definitely gonna be
participation.
audience help on this.
Yes, okay, so first round, because there will be multiple rounds. Oh, and then we'll get to questions. Okay, we'll save time for questions. All right, first round, pick a who card. Fan them out appropriately. Okay, who's your who?
Chimney sweep.
Okay, so there's a dead chimney sweep found
In a chimney.
in any of these places.
On the roof.
Oh, kidding. Okay, that one's a little too logical. And what weapon is lying beside him?
A yardstick.
All right, so Detective Packard, Sheriff Packard, you have just discovered a dead chimney sweep on the roof, murdered with a yardstick. What happened? What the hell is happening in Sandy Lake?
I'm thinking the chimney sweep was trying to measure the chimney to see if he would fit in it. Do they go in the chimney? They just put a brush down the chimney. It's not Santa Claus.
Whose house was he on?
Yeah, whose house? Becky?
Maybe he was on top of Ben's house.
A dead,
It's in construction.
It's up to you, you're the author.
a dead chimney sweep on Ben's roof. He does have a lot of construction going on his house. I think somebody was trying to kill Packard, and they thought it was Packard on the roof, but it was the chimney sweep. And
Ah. They've bludgeoned him to death with a yardstick? Is that what
Sure,
happened?
yeah.
Sure.
Or he fell and impaled himself on the yardstick.
Oh, he impaled himself on the yardstick. Yeah, I think that's good.
He was
I think-
pushed.
Oh, he was pushed.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, you can put those down.
Okay.
We're not gonna reuse any of them. Okay. Second scenario. Pick a who.
Exterminator. Oh, there's a lot of contractors in this game.
Okay, the exterminator was found.
In a circus tent.
And killed with
bike horn.
It's gotta be clowns.
Gotta be clowns, yeah. So it's Labor Day, it's the carnival's in town. The exterminator gets called in to deal with the rat problem that comes with all the animals in the hay. He's in the circus tent, and yeah, an evil clown kills him with a bike horn.
How do you kill someone with a bike horn?
That sounds like it would hurt.
Love is a
Right to the neck.
Right, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
What kind of noise does it make when you get hit with a bike horn?
oh, sorry for
Brr. I don't know.
Okay, all right, so you don't have a career in sound effects, but that's okay. All right, final, you want one more round or two more rounds?
Oh, one.
Do you want one more round or two more rounds?
Two.
Two, yeah,
Wow.
see?
Come on, you guys, you're supposed to be on
The
my
readers
side.
have spoken. Josh is never gonna ask me on stage again. Okay,
Dog walker.
okay, the dog walker is found. Gotta give you all your options.
In the city park.
Is that a dog?
A dog walker, yeah. With, killed by,
A broom.
oh,
So it's the chimney sweep. On the first one, with the broom, who was having an affair with the dog walker. And things went really bad, really quickly. And met up with him in the city park and took him out with the broom.
yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds pretty good. That sounds, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Oh, I forgot, they wanted two more. Oh, you almost got off easy.
Or it must have been the jealous husband of the dog walker that killed the chimney.
All connected. It's a circle.
He was the clown.
No one is safe in Sandy Lake. No one is safe. Okay, here you go.
All right. The carnival barker. Back at the circus.
Carnival barker is found where?
In the crawl space.
Killed with
Poker chips. Oh, who has an idea?
Stuffed in the mouth, obviously, to get him to shut up.
Choke.
Choked to death,
Yeah,
yeah.
choked.
get him to shut up. Did you hear that?
Yeah. Still not barking.
What was he doing in the crawl space?
John Wayne Gacy.
He was hitting. Oh, he hit it.
So there you go.
Killed someone else.
John Wayne Gacy got tired of listening to the carnival barker talk all the time. And so he shoved his mouth full of poker chips and then stuffed him in the crawl space.
Of Ben Packer's house, and then the chimney sweep found him.
And then it started to smell, and Packer's like, is there something dead in my chimney?
Ooh, there you
And
go.
he's like, no, it's in your crawl space. And then Packer's like, why hasn't the dog walker come and picked up Frank? Because he's dead in the city park.
I feel book 4
This
is
is
bubbling to
book
the
4 right
surface.
here.
I
That's
just feel it.
My work is done.
Oh,
And sex work, yeah, there's some sex work in the name.
okay, I think you deserve a round of applause for that. I enjoyed that game.
It was fun, yeah, it was
Yeah,
stressful.
all right.
You guys-
Okay, let's open it to questions. What do you think?
Yes,
Okay.
Katrina.
Yeah, so how do you go about doing your research since you're obviously not a cop?
Obviously. Yeah, I
Do you
remember,
wanna repeat the question?
the question was, how do you go about doing your research? Because I have no background in law enforcement whatsoever. And I remember right before the first book came out, kind of waking up in a cold sweat, realizing I'm about to publish a book about a sheriff's deputy, and I don't know the first thing about being a sheriff's deputy. And I was like, why didn't somebody stop me? I just figured like someone somewhere is going to realize that this is a bad idea, and you should not be able to write a book about a sheriff's deputy when you don't know what you're talking about. But I did. I've read a lot of crime novels, and one thing that I did do was I attended the Citizens Academy that the Scott County Sheriff's Department puts on. So Scott County has Mystic Lake in it. It's got part of the reservation. It's down by Shakopee. And I wanted someplace that wasn't, Hennepin County, because it's too big. I didn't want a big city. And it's fascinating. It's free. They do it every year. And it's like 6 Mondays or 8 Mondays. And you go in and you learn all about how a sheriff's department runs. And you learn about being a patrol deputy and a canine deputy and an investigator and what the sheriff does and where their budget comes from and the issues that they deal with and how dispatch works, and it was amazing. So I learned enough to fake my way through it.
No, that sounds
And,
really cool. I didn't know they did that.
Yeah.
How many writers were in that class?
I was the only one.
Oh,
I
you
took
were?
it twice. I took it once during COVID when it was online, and then I just did it again a few months ago because they're offering it again in person. And then you get to get in the patrol car. You get to meet the canine dog. They flew the drone around. We got to play with the investigators, like fingerprinting kit and their DNA swabs, and yeah, it was much more interesting, hands-on. And yeah, anybody can do it if you're interested.
I'm gonna need you to send me that link.
Okay.
Do you think any murderers went to that class?
Dan asked, do I think any murderers were in that class?
No, because they're all in jail.
Yeah, one thing that we got to do was go to the jail, and we learned about working in the jail, and we were outside in the control area, where they have all the screens and push buttons that open and unlock cells and unlock doors, and one of the deputies, there was a murder in Shakopee not too long ago where a woman got her head cut off in the street.
What?
And we saw the guy, they were like, that's the guy
Are you
that cut
supposed
it.
to tell us that?
It was news. It was all over the news, yeah.
How, can we back up? I'm fascinated here. How did she get her head cut off?
I don't know the whole story. I think they were in a car together and they got out and.
It was a yardstick, wasn't it?
Probably a yardstick.
Very sharp yardstick.
Yeah,
But it was murder, it wasn't an accident.
no, it was murder. He killed her in broad daylight in the middle of the street. And he's still in the Shakopee jail because the trial hasn't happened yet. So assuming he gets found, and I learned the difference between jail and prison. Assuming he's found guilty, then he'll go to prison, but he's still in the Shakopee jail awaiting trial. And you just walk by the stairs and they're like, that's the guy that cut the lady's head off.
Yes.
I think this is almost a legitimate question. So for the first book that you wrote, it had just a small snippet that became the book, the first published book. Second book, how much of the second book was already sort of, would you say, was kind of floating around, and then even still, like with the third book and even possibly the fourth book, how much would you say is sort of in that center point of development that you already had in your momentum as you grew into the third and the fourth book, the second, third, and fourth book?
That's a good question.
Yeah, so the nice thing about writing a series is you've got your main character, you've got your setting, you've got some repeat characters, but you have to think of a fresh crime for every book. And then there's an arc with Ben's, in the first book you find out that his brother disappeared 30 years ago from Sandy Lake, and the body was never found, and he was assumed drowned in the lake where they found the snowmobile. So there's an arc through the first 3 books where you will eventually find out what happened to Packard's brother. So I kind of knew that. Well, I knew I had to address that. I didn't know what happened. And then I had an idea for the crime for the second one, and I had an idea for the crime for the third one, but not super far in advance. It was like ready when it needed to be. And we're on deadline now. They want books they want a book a year. And so they say you have your whole life to write your first novel, which is kind of true. And then you have about 10 months to write the next one. and then if you get behind, then you're behind forever. And right now I'm a little bit behind. So some of it anew and some of it continues book to book, but there's a lot of work that kind of goes in each one, trying to think of a crime and trying to figure out how you're going to portray that crime and reveal it and make it work book to book.
Here's what I want to tag on to that answer. What always amazes me watching you write, because I do, I stare at you across the table while you write, and I don't get any work done. Yeah, I'm just so dreamy. You never cease to amaze me, because when you put your head down into your computer, all of a sudden your fingers just start, you know, you're like a meme, you know, Kermit the Frog meme at the typewriter, and then all of a sudden your head pops up, and we always have a word goal for the day. His head pops up and he says, okay, I'm at 1,000 words, I'm gonna go. And it's like, he's done, Chris is making breakfast, or they're doing something, and he's hit his word goal, and he's just gone, and it's always before me. And you write at night too, after you've worked 40, 50 hours a week at your own job. You throw yourself into your book at night. It's like, it amazes me, the concentration and the focus you're able to put into it. Yeah, and just the output.
Yeah, I mean, you write more words per day than I could ever hope to, but it's,
Well,
yeah, you gotta find, if you're gonna do it, you gotta find the time. And
Yeah.
you gotta get the work done in the time that you have. And
yeah. It's exhausting, and the guy's nonstop. Let me just tell you, it's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive. Okay.
I think Dave,
You mentioned some people in your personal relationships to develop characters. Have you used certain people that you've had relationships or to develop these degenerate characters? or do you just use the news?
Don't answer that.
well, I already talked about Eric. No, the bad guys are all 100% made up.
Okay.
So when you're writing the book, do you have a tendency to kind of write out the whole book and then go back and really build it up, or do you write it slowly and build it as you're going?
I write from the first page to the last page. There's other people will write like scene by scene and then try to connect it all together at the end. I can't do it. I just have to write from the beginning straight through to the end. I try not to go backwards, because you can get really bogged down in the first 100 pages and never get past that. And so, yeah, every time I sit down to write, I just reread. I read what I wrote the day before and then just try to keep it moving. And I don't worry about making it perfect, and I don't worry about it making sense. Because a lot of times I'll have an idea for the crime, but then the crime might change, or who done it might change, or the clues might change. And I'm like, I'll fix it later, because again, you can easily throw yourself off the track and waste a whole, night or weeks writing, futzing around with stuff that you can come back and fix later. So it's always just about moving the story forward until I get to the end, and then I'll go back and fix it later.
You plot pretty well, though. Like, you have a pretty good idea of what's gonna happen and who it's gonna happen to, and
It helps. I mean, I don't have time for 14, 15 revisions anymore, so it helps to kind of know what's going to happen, who did it, and then, but that, it also still leaves plenty of room for serendipity along the way. It's not like every single page and every single scene is plotted out. But it helps to know where you're going from the first third to the second third and to the end, and fill it in along the way.
one final question?
Yeah.
This might not be a good question. Which Panera?
Top secret Panera. it. It's
in Plymouth on
it's in
County Road,
Plymouth. Yeah,
55 and 24.
Well, that's close by.
Mm-hmm.
it's right in between the two of us. It works perfect.
Yeah.
Eric, do not call me a project manager,
Well, I was gonna
or I'll
ask,
have
so
you escorted out of here.
if you're at a barbecue and someone asks you what you say that you're a program manager or you're
Oh, that's a good question. So the question is, if you're at a barbecue and someone asks what you do you say you're an author or do you say you're a program manager?
When people ask me what I do, I still say I work in Medtronic. But I should say,
Unless Stephen King's asking you.
that,
Yeah.
yeah. We'll see how long that's still my answer.
Okay, when you greet Josh tonight and congratulate him on his book, I want you to do me a favor, drill into him the fact that he deserves this, and these books are his. He sent me a text the other day. Josh and I text pretty regularly, and for a quiet, reserved guy, your texts are just hysterical. And the other day it was, oh my God, my publicist just got me reviewed in the New York Times, and yeah. And I can't believe she did that for me. I can't believe she swung that, something like that. And how the hell am I supposed to work for the rest of the day? Because I think it was Friday. And I had to remind you. What did I remind you of?
You reminded me that it's my book, and I got my book reviewed. It was my book that was reviewed in the New York Times.
Yeah. If it wasn't worthy of reviewing, they would have tossed it aside. Now, I know you memorized that first line, so why don't you tell everyone that first line?
Of the review.
Yeah.
She said that she missed the first book when it came out, and it was her mistake, and then she got the name of the first book wrong.
Well, yeah, that was unfortunate. But
I'm demanding a correction from the New York Times.
but I thought that was pretty indicative of how the review was gonna go. I missed Joshua Moehling's debut novel, and that was my mistake.
Yep.
Yeah, and then she goes on to rate it. So, everyone, tonight, your job is to what? Tell Josh that he deserves the success. He is worthy of it. Yes. So congratulations, my friend.
Thank you, Gretchen. Thank you for being here doing this with me again.
Yeah, your success does not surprise me at all, but it does thrill me. I am very, very happy for you.
And so I gotta plug Gretchen because she has 3 fantastic novels, and when you're done reading about the dirtbags in my book, you'll want a reminder that there are good people in the world who are nice to each other and care about each other, and that there are loving families who are funny and have really interesting and quirky stories. And that is Gretchen. That is all 3 of Gretchen's books, and they're all fantastic. So read my book and then read Gretchen's book to cleanse your palate. And remind yourself the nice world out there.
Thank you, sir. All right, Matthew, I think that wraps it up.